In the heart of Valaba, King Arvind ruled with unmatched wisdom, his reign a golden age of peace and prosperity. The people adored him, not because they feared him but because they loved him. Arvind had a unique approach to rule. He would walk among his subjects, disguised as one of them, listening to their worries and sharing in their daily struggles. Under his guidance, the kingdom thrived. The fields yielded bountiful harvests, trade routes flourished, and most of all, the people felt secure under a king who truly understood their needs. But the palace was not as harmonious as the streets. In the grand halls, Queen Nandini grew restless. Unlike Arvind, Nandini came from a dynasty that worshipped power above all else. She had married Arvind, believing that his wisdom would eventually give rise to ambition. But as the years passed, she began to see his compassion as a flaw, a fatal weakness that would be Valaba's undoing. The more Arvind dedicated himself to his people, the more Nandini's love for him turned to contempt. She saw in his acts of mercy a king who had forgotten his duty to the crown, a man who, in her eyes, was no longer fit to rule. As famine struck Valaba one terrible year, the tension between them reached its breaking point. While Arvind rushed to feed the hungry, emptying the royal granaries and depleting the treasury, Nandini watched in silent fury. Every coin spent on the peasants felt like a dagger twisting in her chest. The palace grew colder, not from the winter that had set in but from the frigid distance between husband and wife. One evening, Nandini's resentment could no longer be contained. "You're giving everything away," she spat, her voice sharp as glass. "Do you not see the danger? These people do not respect you, they pity you. And when the coffers are empty, when they see that you have nothing left to give, they will turn on you like wolves." Arvind, weary from days spent toiling in the fields, lifted his gaze. "The people follow me because they know I will never forsake them. Fear does not hold a kingdom together, Nandini. Love does." But Nandini's heart had already hardened. In her eyes, love made one weak, vulnerable, and blind. She saw in Arvind's generosity not the act of a great king but the foolishness of a man who had lost touch with the crown's true purpose. "You are no longer their king, Arvind," she hissed. "You are their servant." From that moment on, Nandini resolved to take matters into her own hands. While Arvind wandered the villages, tending to the famine-stricken, she convened secret meetings with ministers and generals, men who shared her belief that Valaba needed a ruler of strength, not mercy. Slowly, she began to twist the court against her husband, planting seeds of doubt about his leadership. Whispers filled the palace halls, rumors that Arvind was draining the kingdom of its wealth, weakening the military, and leaving Valaba exposed to enemies from within and beyond its borders. The coup was swift and brutal. Arvind, returning from another journey to the ravaged villages, was ambushed by his own royal guard. The man who had once sworn to protect him now stood with cold eyes, chains in hand. He did not resist. His heart was too heavy, broken not by the betrayal of his kingdom but by the betrayal of the woman he had once loved. As he was led away to the dungeon, a part of him died, for Arvind had never believed that love could fail so completely. Nandini wasted no time in seizing control. She donned the crown with the cold efficiency of a general assuming command of a battlefield. Her first act as ruler was to purge the court of any loyalists to Arvind. Ministers who had once praised her husband were either exiled or executed. The military was bolstered, the treasury replenished through new taxes and harsh penalties, and Valaba's neighbors were reminded of the kingdom's strength through force, not diplomacy. For a time, Valaba was secure, strong even. The streets were patrolled by soldiers, and no enemy dared approach its fortified walls. But the soul of the kingdom was dead. The laughter that had once filled the streets was replaced by the sound of boots marching and the quiet whispers of fear. Trade continued, but the markets were no longer bustling with the joy they had once known. The people, though fed and protected, no longer looked at their rulers with admiration. They bowed their heads out of necessity, not love. As the years passed, Nandini's triumph began to taste bitter. She had won her throne through strength, but the kingdom felt hollow beneath her. Alone on the throne, she realized that in seeking to save Valaba through fear, she had drained it of life. She had become the ruler she always wanted to be, but it had cost her the man she once loved and the soul of her kingdom. One day, as if drawn by the ghosts of her past, Nandini found herself walking through the palace gardens toward the remote wing where Arvind had been kept prisoner all these years. The guards bowed as she passed, their faces expressionless. When she entered his chamber, she found him frail, aged beyond his years, but his spirit was untouched by the weight of the chains that bound him. For a moment, they stared at each other, the silence thick with the weight of all that had been lost between them. Nandini, her voice trembling, said, "I thought I was doing what was best for the kingdom. I thought power was what we needed to survive." Arvind, his voice soft but steady, replied, "Power without love is a curse, Nandini. It destroys not only kingdoms but the souls of those who wield it." The words cut deeper than any blade. Nandini, for the first time in years, felt the full weight of what she had done. She had traded love for power and, in doing so, had lost both. She left Arvind's chamber shaken, but the damage had already been done. The kingdom was beyond repair, and so was she. In her final years, Nandini tried to mend what was left of Vallabha, returning to Arvind's ideals of compassion. But the people could not forget the years of fear. The vibrancy that had once defined the kingdom never returned. Nandini died a lonely queen. Her reign was remembered not for its strength but for the shadows it cast. As the people of Vallabha tell this story, they do so with a shiver. Some say the kingdom was doomed by Arvind's mercy. Others say it was Nandini's ambition that destroyed them. But most agree it was the love they both lost forgotten in the battle for power that sealed Vallabha's tragic fate. What do you think? Could Arvind's compassion have sustained the kingdom, or was Nandini right in her pursuit of strength? Could they have ruled together, or were they always destined for this end? Let me know in the comments. And if you enjoy stories that twist the heart and mind, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more tales from Folktales of Many Tribes.